So, in fact, I'm going to bring this around to a feedlot when I'm done. This little part of the discussion. Because a feedlot is a good example of something. So I said, think of like a checkerboard. Chessboard. And let's suppose...
there's a new chess bot out there that's blowing people up.
Yeah. I'm sure they're doing an NP-hard optimization algorithm. They've tweaked it. They've tweaked it a little more to reduce the degrees of freedom.
It's actually a style of play from what I read. I just read a quick article on it. Where they just turn it into an attrition game. Like there's no, very little emphasis on opening moves.
Okay.
And just grinding people into dust, essentially.
Well, and this is it. In the optimization, so the things are called minimax theorems, and you can. So this is not linear algebra; it's nonlinear algebra. So how do you get linear algebra is solving systems of equations. Nonlinear algebra is solving systems of inequalities. Like 4x plus 3y, greater than 2. And 1, z minus 4l is less than 5 or whatever. So whole systems of inequalities. And minimax theorems try to say, if you have systems of inequalities, and then you put additional constraints on them, or how do you maximize a particular thing or minimize a particular thing? So in the case of this chess thing,
1 second.
Yeah.
If the exit is in 1 mile, I think it's this one. If I look this way, because the road it's the same road. Can't tell. This is the exit. You get off here and you had to go back that way.
This is
To the neighborhood. So it was weird because I saw the address and I was like, that's the same road as the farm. We call the farm like where my mom grew up. And I was like, I looked at it, the map. This person called me when I was running the car service in Denver, and they're like, hey, do you service out here? And what would be the rate? And I was like, well, hold on, let me look at it on the map.
Right.
Let me see how many miles it is to the airport. Look at it on the map, and I'm like, there ain't that many people out here. I was like, you know the Alonzos out there? Talking about Pete and Junior, and I was like, yeah. They're like, how do you know him? I'm like, my mom was Linda.
Right.
So they were mechanics. They did some farming too, but mainly they were fixing and welding everyone's tractors and stuff.
Yes,
and so everyone knew him out here. Yeah. Junior was a mobile welder, so he'd roll all over these places, welding up farm equipment. But I was like, yeah, I got you guys on discount. But it was the same, it was
same road.
county road, whatever. And I looked at the number and I was like, yeah, the road doesn't go through, but it's got the same name on both sides of the highway.
Right.
Because it obviously existed before the highway was here.
Right.
Right. Back to the feedlot.
The systems of inequalities and trying to maximize something or trying to minimize something. As it turns out, minimizing or maximizing is the same thing. It's either I'm minimizing this or I'm maximizing the negative of this. Right? It's the same thing. So good. And this is one of the tricks in algorithm theory, is to take any problems and transpose them and translate them, rotate them so they're just, you can solve one problem which solves 2. Those ones are actually the solution for 4 different ones. And you can do one solution that solves everything, right? That's the dream. You can solve life, basically, if you can get the ultimate equation solved, then every other thing is just a subset of that equation. But so there is this system and way of thinking about, which is very reasonable and rational, of how you solve systems of inequalities to maximize or minimize it. You can't solve them because they're inequalities. You can solve equations. You can't solve an inequality, but you can come up with what parameters you put in on each of them to maximize something in this system of inequalities. Like maximize the return as an Uber driver. If there's this many different people who do it, which one should you take? Which will maximize the amount of money you can make today? Or minimize the amount of gasoline you gotta to pay, subject to getting at least $50 today, or whatever it is. So you can put all kinds of constraints, and each of those constraints becomes an inequality. So whenever you start with a system of inequalities, you're adding additional inequalities as constraints on the system. Then you say, now maximize this, maximize one of these things. And the interesting thing that comes out of all of this, when you get the maximum of a system of inequalities, which or include all the constraints that you can imagine into those inequalities, not only do you get the answer, but the coefficients on all of them in the answer tell you how valuable each one of these things is. So it gives you a whole much larger set of information saying how important is it to you any one of these things.
It tells you the weighting.
Yes.
It tells you the weighting.
It gives you the weighting, and it tells you how much, like, where should you focus if you want to go better than this? Of all the different things, what's the most important one?
How do you turn it up?
Right. And where do you have to play? Where do you have to turn it up? And what component?
This is where you get your best return.
Right.
Whatever polynomial this one was.
Right.
Turn that one up. Figure out how to turn that thing up.
Right. Figure out how to reduce that constraint. Give yourself more freedom. More freedom in this constraint gives you $10 of benefit. More freedom in this constraint gives you like $1 of benefit. So focus on this one. So it's not just what should you do today. It's what should you be working on for tomorrow, which is exceptionally valuable, right? For running a business or anything else you're doing. So this stuff is really good. And so I looked at it and I said, okay.
Sinus cleared out now? A little bit better?
It's better. Yeah. Yeah, a lot better. That wasn't bad, if that's all it was. I was thinking around 50 or 60 miles of this stuff, I wasn't sure. All right, so to make this simple, let's suppose you consider the checkerboard, and like the black and red parts are just like the fields, and the roads are the lines between them, right? So you got a checkerboard pattern of all these roads going north and south, east and west, kind of like 12-mile road, 13-mile road, Ryan Mound, the checkerboard pattern. But so you have that, and let's call like the destinations to be these intersections. And you have maybe like 5 of these intersections. Where you're making your sales call, and you're starting out at your home, and you have 5 sections to go to when I come back to. So there's 6 dots, and somewhere on this checkerboard pattern. There's
Checking
6
this
dots.
thing out?
No, what's this thing doing?
I don't know.
I guess it's probably a cement factory. Oh, they're saying sugar. It's something that uses a lot of heat.
Yeah.
That's what it is. There's sugar production. So basically you're starting at the intersection of like Battleship, B6, right? That's your home, and you want to go to A2 and C9 and E3, and the question is, what's the shortest path to get that way? But in reality, these paths are not, it's not a checkerboard where it's equal distance between all of them. You can, if you're identifying it by like time, obviously certain roads a mile, it takes you longer than go other certain roads, right, for a mile. So if you're doing it in time, that same, even though geographically,
that's the weighting.
Yes. Well,
you're gonna see the weighting.
It's starting. You're starting to get it. But what might be a certain length of a path in one descriptive model, like geographical distance in miles, when you instead put amount of time it takes you, it transforms and twists this around. In 3-dimensional, you can think of it as being twisted around to be a different topographical surface, where what was 1 mile is 2 minutes here, but it's only 1 minute over here. Or maybe going east, it's 2 minutes, going west, it's 1 minute. So even though it's still 1 fucking mile in both directions, the two cities, it's like if you had a city which was 1 mile from you this way, but when you came back it was 2 miles from you, right? And so and now gasoline, same kind of thing, it'd be very different. So there's lots of ways to describe this stuff. But the basic concept is that of geography. Everyone understands that one because they've seen maps. All right. And you want to figure out the shortest path. Fair enough. In the world of chess things, the shortest path is real simple because every one is one. Every square is one by one, you know? But once you start to put in time or gasoline usage, that's obviously no longer is it very simple. And you could have, as I say, different distances if you're going from A to B might be a distance of 1, and from B to A is a distance of 3. So it gets you a little twisted in your head if you're thinking just a pure geography thing, but it makes sense if you're thinking about time or energy or whatever. All right, but you have this basic idea, and then what I superimposed on that was, well, every entity in the planet is its own city. You are City Savvy, I'm City Carl, and General Motors is City General Motors. And everyone in General Motors is their own city. Their city finance controller of General Motors, and chief marketing officer, and CEO, and board member, and guy working on the line. Everyone of their own cities, their own places. So you can now start to imagine a map which is multi-dimensional, not just two-dimensional, but more than three-dimensional. Could be infinitely dimensional map, n-dimensional map of individual cities. And each city has, and this is the key, this is the feedlot idea. You can call that a feedlot, or you can call it a manure factory. It is both, right? And this is why everything in life is not just one thing. There's no monopole magnets. You got a North Pole, you got a South Pole. You got an in, you got an out. This is the way it goes. There is a circle of life. There's a circle of everything. There's the carbon circle, right? We know that. There's the oxygen circle. There's lots of different things. There's whatever, but matter is neither created nor destroyed, right? It transformed, changes in form. Same thing with energy. And then once you realize energy and matter are the same thing, it's just energy and matter are just transformed. So I said, let's imagine that n-dimensional map where every decision maker has certain things which it's receiving, like water flowing into it, like it's got power, like voters, like the city named Obama had voters which were giving it their votes and political power. So he had that. It was a resource he had. It was political powers flowing in. He had that resource. And he could make decisions of how he's using that power, and things would flow out. Like he could support this particular healthcare act or whatever else. You could use the resource that you have. But everybody, has resources are kind of flowing in. And they use those resources and they become resources for the next guy. It's flowing out to that guy. But there's this continuous flow of resource. Now, to some extent, you say we each produce our own resource. Like maybe our own thoughts. Could say is your own resources. You're adding to the stuff. So you learn something in school, then you thought something yourself. And then so your output could be larger than the inputs to you. Of course, you could be a freaking idiot. You could have all kinds of inputs coming to you which just go down the drain because you can't even figure out what they mean, right? And you're not using them. So wasted resources coming in. But
well, it's like, it's gasoline.
Right.
Throw it the fuck away.
Right. Throw gasoline away. We want kerosene. We're a kerosene company. That is a wasted, that is an unneeded...
That's garbage.
Thing. Right.
It's
and
waste.
so the guy who says, listen, I'll take it from you for free. And I'll discard it at no cost. Or no, he comes in and undercuts the competition. They're charging you how much per ton to take that away. I will take it away for half the cost. That's the smart guy. The guy who comes and says, listen, can I pay you for that? That's a fucking idiot.
No.
All of a sudden you're changing their mind.
Not until I have to.
Right, right. So, but I'm saying this idiocy is in our world, where you go and say, I want to pay you for that, then the person says, oh, I got a resource they want, oh, I can go, and it changes the dynamic. And this is part of the ERC model.
Well,
don't fucking sabotage yourself. Don't poison your own well.
I noticed that I was 18 when I was like, this was working at an oil change.
Yeah.
The oil change is paying the company to come get the waste oil. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. It was like, and everyone knows they just turn around and sell this shit, right?
Right.
Yeah. I was like, that's like the dumbest thing ever.
But it's marketed as, we're going to help you by putting fresh oil in here for you. And they don't mention
It might have even been the same company. That was like,
they don't mention that, by the way, for free, you're going to deliver what we want to buy from us to us, and you're going to give that to us for free in the process. Right.
no, they're charging them for it to take the waste oil away.
And then they do a waste oil disposal charge, right?
Yeah.
Then they take the waste oil and they sell it to someone who's going to refine it into something, recondition and refine it. So anyway, I'm saying that
They don't even do that. They basically like filter it,
Really?
right? They get all the solids out.
Right.
And they sell it to people that light their barns with it. They use it for heating the barns.
Sure. That makes sense, right? So what I said was, if you had this multi-dimensional traveling salesman problem, and you've got a guy who says, I'm starting here, this is my home. My home is, I have these resources. I might have money, I might have power, I might have voting power, I might, who knows what, I got some kids, I got my own labor. But at any given point, any individual has a bunch of resources at their disposal, their command. At a minimum, in general, you have your own body, right? And you can move your arm up and down. Like, these are some things you have. You might be able to speak. So there's some resources you have at your command. And you're trying to solve an optimization problem of, how do I get the most of what I want? So there's things I have which are of lesser value to me than the things that I want. Like, I have some money in my bank account, but I want to have a nice house to live at Oakhurst, Well, I would like to go buy a house then, right? And trade my money for the house. And I said, or I have some time, and I'd like to earn some money because, you know what, I'd like some food. And to get the food, the guy with the food says he wants money. For me to get the money, I go get a job and give him some of my time, and then I get the money to get the food so I can eat, right? So I said, this is the way the system works. It's this bartering and trading. And at any given time, you've got certain things. You're trying to figure out how to trade up. It's the game of trade up. You want to trade up for something that you value more, and then maybe give that up something you value even more, and keep trading up where you get more and more of what you want. Now, the interesting thing is that the guy on the other side is playing the same fucking game. So everybody's trying to trade out. So the first insight I get is, and I got this long ago, but I started to put it into the terms of these algorithm theories. The insight is that people have different values of different things. And maybe your time is not really that worthwhile because you're sitting here, but if you come and join this team that this guy's got and you do something, he might be able to create something really valuable. And he knows how to use your time better than you know how to use your time. And that's why you're coming to work for him. And similarly with metals, ores in the ground, metals, whatever else. Money, give me your money. You want more, just give it to me. I'll do something with it and you'll get back more. Even though I'm benefiting from that process too, I'm so much better than you are at this that I can pull something out and you still get more than what you would have done with it. So in any event, the general idea being, it's because we all have different starting points, but also because we all have different value for various outputs, that we can barter and trade and both feel like we win. We both are better off. So every transaction is a zero-sum game. If I give you an hour of my time, you have it, and I don't have it. It is, in the dimension of hours of time, there's no time created here. But in terms of how I value what you're giving me, you're giving me $100, and I value that more than my own time, but you're making 1,000 off it, and you value my hour more than the 100 because you're making 1,000. We both are happy. We both value more the output than the inputs, than what we had to input. So we're always trading something which we value less, something we value more, but because we have different tastes and likes and wants and different starting positions, one man's risk is another man's reward. The left side of one coin is the opposite of the right side of the other guy's thing, and both of them say, no, I'm the obverse and you're the reverse. And no, I'm the obverse and you're the reverse. But as it turns out, it's just a fucking coin. And how you name obverse and reverse is not relevant.
It's perspective.
It's just a perspective. It's the theory of relativity. It's relative to your position. You view everything relative to your position. So I said, imagine now if we take all of the human decisions ever in the past, today, or ever in the future, and think of them from the perspective of this multi-dimensional chessboard, where each decision is the decision make is what occurs when somebody at that crossroads says, I'll take what's coming to him from my right and I'll give to my left. Or the traveling salesman's problem, where he's got to go from A to B to C to D and circle back. Each time there's an ingress and an egress. And the key is it's got to be one egress for every ingress unless you die, right? Or one ingress for every egress unless you happen to be born at that moment in that spot. But in general, if you're not being birthed or dying, there's an ingress and an egress every time. But there is an in and an out. There's a yin and a yang. And that one man's yang is another man's yin. The output from A to B is the input from A to B into B. The output from A is the input into B. And vice versa as well. And that the feed company is the shit company. Because one goes to one end of the cow, the other one comes out the other end of the cow. It always works that way. It just continually flows and transforms. And so as I started to think about that, the objective, almost universally, in the shortest path problems and traveling salesman problems, etc., is to simplify the problems by removing intermediate steps. Efficiency growth is by cutting out steps. So you don't have to go from here to there to there to there to there. You can go straight through. It's a superhighway, right? Don't go from this town to this town to this town. Get to the superhighway. Don't stop and keep going. So it's almost always simplify, optimize by cutting out stops. Because stops along the path are the things that cost you stuff. And if you can just keep going and not stopping, it's more efficient. That is almost universally the ideas. Last one I said, hold on a fucking second. I see your optimization ideas, but you are assuming that every stop costs you something. I said, and that's because you keep in this mentality in your head of a physical map where you had this great insight of a zero length road. Great. By the way, applause to you because you imagined a road of zero length which got you from A to B, like the transporter beam in Star Trek. Good for you imagine that. That did open up a world of different ideas and symmetries which helped you, and I'm good for you. Now, can you imagine negative length roads? Because no one was imagining negative length roads. But I did. I said, if you transform the issue to, for example, manufacturer.
I think I understand the idea already.
Good.
Check it out. There's a Hummer.
Oh yeah.
It's one of the new ones. Right there.
Very cool. By the way, are these Tesla trucks, are they just a truck with a trailer behind it, or is it the whole thing as one thing?
No, it's a tractor and a trailer.
Tractor and trailer, okay.
Yeah. Fuck, that Hummer's a long way away from a city.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm trying to. I had one of those like
little brain fart.
I had something like I saw there was a flash in there of something with the negative length road.
A splurt, right?
And then I'm trying to figure out. There's another one. Another feedlot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Was going through Montfort's meat packer factory.
Right.
Yeah. All of it.
Right.
So if we're looking at, these, what do I call it? Whatever representation, doesn't care.
Yeah.
And it's got we've been discussing positive numbers and zero numbers, right?
Right.
And all right, I lost it.
It's all right. It'll come back to you. Because we're gonna be like moving around this space, and you'll stumble on it again. So, in the world that this technology and thinking process was approached, given to me, was a world about minimizing costs, minimizing expense.
So if you use it as a negative, it's what would normally be considered a cost, you're literally just flipping it upside down. It's already a benefit.
It's a revenue, right?
Yeah, it's already a benefit.
Exactly. So in a world of scarcity, in a world where you model the world as scarcity, and you're trying to get something positive, but anytime you turn, someone's putting their hand in your pocket and you're losing stuff, right? And you're worried about friction all over the place. You're trying to move forward and friction is always slowing down. In fact, you believe no matter which way you move, friction will slow you down, right? And that basically you have your objectives and you're trying to get somewhere, but basically anytime you come in contact with the rest of the world, they'll be slowing you down. That's what they are. And the question is, how do you minimize the slowdown? How do you minimize the friction on the road? You can rolling stock, which is more efficient. How can you minimize what you got to pay for gasoline? How can you minimize the time it takes, which is a wasted thing because you're wasting your time to get there, right? So in a world of scarcity, in a world of you, where there's scarcity, you try to minimize interaction with the world. That's what you try to do. All right, and I believe that pretty much this was the world that I grew up in, basically. That world that I grew up in, is not necessarily the world that it's always been and everywhere, but in general, there's this idea that there's scarcity, and I want mine, and somebody else wants what I want to be mine.
Well,
So
I think
we're
it's a
gonna have to-
zero-sum game.
Yeah, we got to kind of compete with them. And that there's friction even in the zero-sum game, so it's really a negative-sum game.
Yeah.
Because if I buy the stock and he sells the stock, a broker's going to take a little out.
Yeah.
And we're all going to, the
all
investors
gonna
are all going to bleed a little bit, right? And you can say, who's paying the vig when I bet on the Colts to win? Who's playing big? Well, it's the winner, not the loser. Well, guess what?
No, you both are
You both are
idiots.
fucking paying the goddamn thing. It's just, they're collecting it from the credit-worthy counterparty, right?
Right.
They're collecting it from the guy they're paying money to, but they can collect it,
So
right?
the winner's paying
Right.
his and the other guys.
Because you're uncollectible, yeah, the loser. Literally, the loser. So I said, well, hold on a second. Imagine if you were in a world of positive sum games and surplus. That the more you did, the better it got. Anti-friction. Maybe even anti-gravity, but even worse. Gravity, people know how to push against gravity. Friction, you can't push against friction, you can just try to avoid it, right? So I'm thinking like anti-friction. And how about this? The further the distance between where you're starting and where you're ending up, the less energy you use. And the more time you have, not the less time when you get there. I'm saying let's try to imagine the negative world. Well, I should say the opposite, because there's nothing negative about it, really. The opposite world. The utopian world. And I said, what people are missing is because they're viewing the world from their own eyes. When they make a transaction and they give up something they value less and get something they value more, they're implicitly feeling that the other guy's getting cheated a little bit because they made out on this deal. And that guy's gotten the thing of lesser value and giving up something of greater value. They're keeping their mouth shut and smiling to try to be nice to the fucking idiot who just gave them advantage and benefit in this zero-sum game. But that in general, they know that if they then find that one idiot they can do this, as they try to do other stuff, they're not all idiots and someone else will be doing that to them, and that they got to pay away the spread. In the words of that I did learn, a few years later on Wall Street, you can be the price maker or the price taker, and the price taker is the one who pays away the spread. You quote the spread with a bid offer spread. He has got to buy at the high or sell at the low, his choice. He does one of the two, he pays the spread to you in this process, or half